Jurassic Park has some interesting tie-in games. Certainly more than a lot of other series do, and way more than the usual side-on boilerplate platformer you often used to get back in the day. We've got everything from legendary turkeys to massive hits, games that had profound effects on a company, and an awful lot of boundary pushing, certainly for the 90s. A lot of the Jurassic Park games are completely different from each other, and seeing as so many of them fall into the category of interesting failure, most of them warrant a bunch of writing about. Today, we're looking specifically at the Mega Drive's Jurassic Park games, which of all the 16-bit ones are probably the most famous. And they're quite a mixed bag. The first one, the one that's obviously based on the original film and loosely follows its plot, is by far the most successful of them. It sold well over 1 million. Definitely one of the system's biggest hits. As far as tie-in games go, I would imagine that it's second only to Aladdin. And also it's not very good. In fact, it's pretty bloody awful. I would go as far to say that when a lot of people talk about the Mega Drive and the lousy quality of Western platformers on the system, most of them specifically have Jurassic Park in mind. Let me explain. Obviously it's worth delving a little into the development here. There's some quite fun stuff to look at. Sega, having acquired a license for Jurassic Park, decided to farm it out to one of their favoured Western developers, Blue Sky Software. These fellas cut their teeth first on the Atari consoles and the 8-bit family, before switching to PC, and then releasing their most prominent work on the Mega Drive. They first impressed people on the MD with their actually very good conversion of the PC classic Starflight, released in 1991. From there they released a bunch of pretty successful titles on the system. There's entries in the Joe Montana series, the World Series baseball games, The Little Mermaid, and for non-sports fans there is, of course, the 2 Vectorman games. 2 quite impressive titles from late in the system's life that move pretty damn smooth, even if they both have a few of the same problems that Jurassic Park has. Anywho, we'll get into that. For me, Blue Sky's best game by far is this one here, their outstanding RPG based on Shadowrun, a very open-ended game before such things really became in vogue. Blue Sky, as you can see, didn't like to specialise in one particular genre, they dabbled in a bit of everything. Anyway, early success on the Mega Drive would end up landing Blue Sky with an awful lot of responsibility. In the early 90s, Sega gave them not 1, but 2 major licensed properties to make games out of. At the same time, Jurassic Park was one and the other was the aforementioned Aladdin. I've made a video about Aladdin's development before, but to sum up as best as possible, while having Jurassic Park and Aladdin to play with could be seen as something of an honour for Blue Sky, on the other hand it was far too much work for the studio. The resources of Blue Sky pretty quickly shifted almost entirely to one of these games over the other, and that game would be Jurassic Park. Very little was done on Aladdin by Blue Sky, Sega were horrified when they eventually checked on it, and the Aladdin game had to be created and rushed in all of a few months by both Disney and Virgin Games. Thanks to what can only be called magic, Aladdin still ended up being a brilliant game and one of the Mega Drive's biggest hits despite all of this chaos. Now, you could blame Blue Sky for all of this, but it kinda speaks to Sega's often terrible organisation skills in the 90s that they would give 2 massive and critical to their success licensed games to a single studio instead of thinking that just maybe they should have given one of them to someone else from the beginning. By the way, if you look at the map in Jurassic Park, there is a little Easter egg that references the fact that Blue Sky were originally on the development of Aladdin. Jurassic Park quite clearly excited Blue Sky a lot more than Aladdin did, and who can blame them? It's got dinosaurs and shit. That was pretty much the reason why the film was such a big hit, after all, indeed the most successful film ever released at that point. Blue Sky spent 15 months creating the Jurassic Park game, turning the on-screen action into something you can actually play, with prolific bods like Jesse Taylor, Keith Freeheight and Dana Christensen working on the game, as well as no less a fella than Doug TenNapel, yes, that bloody Doug TenNapel, working on the art. You've got a lot of high-tech state-of-the-art knickknacks milling about. The game's dinosaurs were created using silicone graphics computers based on 3D models and then shoved into the game and animated using stop motion, while the sprite of Dr. Grant was a digitised one, with Sam Neill being replaced by some fella from the production team, captured on video performing actions and then rendered onto the screen. The almighty Velociraptor itself was even created entirely from one of the same raptor puppets used in the production of the film. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. Stop motion techniques and digitising aside, one of Jurassic Park's other big marketing points was something called ADI, Artificial Dinosaur Intelligence. You find this to be quite a common problem that developers of Jurassic Park games try to face down. How do we get these dinosaurs to not behave like plain old in-game enemies, and instead actually behave like dinosaurs? Having consulted with a whole lot of experts and paleontologists and done plenty of study and research, Blue Sky created the ADI system to try and give the dinos as much AI as possible, giving each dinosaur multiple possible reactions to any given situation, along with a whole bunch of different animations. The Raptors, befitting their status as the most intelligent and capable pack hunters in Jurassic Park's universe, apparently have as many as 12 reactions to the player, ranging from immediately attacking you to deciding that you're not worth it, based on various factors such as the amount of energy that you have, or the weapons and ammo you're carrying. And of course none of this is totally set in stone, meaning that the reactions can vary from raptor to raptor even if you approach both of them in the exact same state. If you don't engage with them, they may chase you for a short time, or they may even try to chase you through the whole stage if possible. That's the idea in theory, anyhow. The whole point of the system is to try and make each playthrough of Jurassic Park somewhat different, with enemies not doing the exact same thing each and every time. More sophisticated than the norm for the Mega Drive, in any case. And having done so much work, and indeed having spent so much money just on the creation of the Velociraptor, well, it would be a bit of a waste to simply use the Raptor just as an enemy now, wouldn't it? The biggest marketing point of all for the Jurassic Park tie-in, certainly when it was finally announced at the 1993 Summer CES show, is that you have two different characters to play the game out as. Dr. Grant is the first, obviously, and much like the movie, you've got to survive the prehistoric pests with him and escape the island. But you also finally get to step into the, well, feet and claws of the Raptor itself. You can play as a Raptor in pursuit of Dr. Grant and also looking for a way off Isla Nublar. The Raptor has to deal not only with the dinosaurs like the Dilophosaurus, Pteranodon and Procopsognathus that Grant encounters, but also InGen's crack security team, who are out here to placate the unruly beasts by any means necessary. The game received generally decent reviews when it came out from most magazines, as it goes, although that's probably not a surprise or anything considering just how big a deal the game was. As mentioned already, it sold tons, more than 1 million copies, enough to put it in the system's top 10 best-selling games and the second best non-sports licensed game behind Aladdin. Considering how massive the film was, that should probably be expected, but going by estimates it certainly did better than the SNES's Jurassic Park tie-in game, which was of course a totally different title, but that's a story for another video. Lots of people have many memories of Sega's Jurassic Park game, that's for sure, and a lot of them are associated with sheer frustration and hacking away at a seemingly insurmountable brick bloody wall of a platformer. 'Cause there's kind of a lot of issues here, to be honest. This game is, in the end, a pretty bloody shoddy title, and one that seems to sum up a lot of the worst traits of Western platformers on the Mega Drive, even if it isn't necessarily down with the likes of Bubsy and Awesome Possum as one of the absolute worst of them. There are some decent things, of course, mostly on the presentation side. Obviously it's pretty good looking. Sega and Blue Sky spared no expense on the graphics, so you better believe that they're good. The digitising isn't all that bad, and the game doesn't actually appear to be obviously digitised either, which is a fine effort here on a 16-bit console. The sound effects are excellent, and the music isn't bad. Jurassic Park uses the often derided GEMS sound driver that Sega provided to Western studios, but the game's rather moody and fast-paced electronic compositions represent quite a decent use of GEMS. Blue Sky generally didn't do badly with gems. If you've played Shadow 1, you'll notice that both games use the exact same sound fonts, and both of them fare pretty well in the sound department. These are all good things, of course. We'll get a bit more into playing with the Raptor in a bit, but playing with the Raptor is certainly a superior experience to playing the game as Grant. However, it kinda makes more sense to start with the film's main character. Now, in theory, the game should have been about surviving as much as platforming, with ammo being kind of thin on the ground, having to make decisions on whether you should actually try and engage with dinosaurs as opposed to running away from them, and so on. In practice, it doesn't really work out like that. You're not actually all that weak, with a variety of weapons at your disposal, and even raptors will generally fall with a flurry of shots from any weapon, or rather they'll be stunned long enough for you to get past. The T-Rex is naturally here too, although he's more of a puzzle to be avoided. You can't actually do an awful lot against him. As for the much hyped ADI that makes the dinosaurs actually behave like dinosaurs, well, again, it's something that sounds great in theory, but in practice it doesn't really have too much of an effect on the game aside from not fully knowing what a dino's going to do. In any case, you're probably just going to shoot at most every big dino that you see. You're only going to get in trouble with things like ammunition and the like if you spend a bit too much time attacking Procompsognathus spawns pointlessly. It all sounds good, but the actual effect is negligible. Still, this is but the least of Jurassic Park's problems. The real issues here are just about all technical. We've got awful, purposefully frustrating level design. This game is a huge fan of leaps of faith. So many times you really have no clue where you're leaping to, and Grant can't fall too far, meaning you get a lot of pointless deaths. There is a password system at least, so you can start levels over again endlessly, but so much of the game is based on dealing with these annoying leaps. Dinosaurs aren't your greatest enemy here, pits are. Levels themselves sometimes just seem to be shoved together at random, or designed with pure malice in mind. You've always got platforms just that little bit out of reach, or in the case of a level like the friggin' sewer pipes, constant low ceilings meaning you always have to go right up to the very edge on a jump, lest you accidentally bonk your head and naturally fall down another bastard pit. It doesn't feel like a natural challenge, it just feels like you're bashing your head against a wall until it actually breaks. It's designed to be annoying at every step. All of these problems are amplified when you play as Grant, and they are a little bit softened when you play as Raptor. The Raptor experience is far superior. You're fast, you can jump a big distance, and you've got plenty of moves. The enemies here, the security team, also often pose a better challenge. As the Raptor you can generally only attack at close range, and naturally the security has guns, tasers and grenades that are designed to keep you far away. So you might actually have to use all of the Raptor's wide range of attacks and moves to get past them, or get the drop on them. You get to play a lot quicker, the game's a bit more action packed, and it's all a bit more rewarding even if a lot of the level design issues still remain, only with a couple more cheap tricks added. Guards positioned right at the edge of platforms waiting to knock you back into a pit, and so on. Those are always really great. And still, well, chances are you've noticed the biggest issue already just by watching the game in action. The bloody slowdown. This game might have the most slowdown of any Mega Drive title. Seemingly anything that happens in the game causes slowdown. Hell, the game can sometimes slow down even when there's no dinosaurs on the screen. It's that bad. When you combine this amount of slowdown with the generally fiddly nature of controlling digitised characters, the movement that sometimes feels just too canned, the platforms that are out of reach even when they quite clearly shouldn't be, never quite trusting that actions are going to trigger when they should, this whole experience becomes very unpleasant indeed. The game just creaks along, clearly needing much more in the way of juice, and making the system look very weak indeed. Ugh, not nice. So many of these problems are ones that people consider endemic in a lot of Western platformers, especially on the Mega Drive or Genesis. The level design's poor, filled with nonsensical layouts and cheap tricks which more than anything make the game frustrating and not hard in a good way. The digitised sprites are always going to be a bit wonky and never as good as a proper drawn one. The game's filled with technical issues and gives the impression of not being very well made at all. Even the game's little successes, like actually making something okay with the gems driver, are tied up in negatives. It's good for gems. A decent custom-made sound driver would still be superior. Jurassic Park's pretty much got all these problems that a lot of other games have, and being such a successful title, it kinda feels like a poster child for all of them. Even if a lot of people have memories of this game, it doesn't feel like a lot of those memories are good. That's definitely the impression I get. It's all, wow, I remember playing this. We couldn't get past the first level. I threw my controller. I chucked my console at the wall. I burnt the family house down. And so on. When you add age to all of this, well, that just makes the game even worse, really. Needless to say, it's aged about as well as a pack of stinky cheese. Or, I don't know, a vintage Crystal Pepsi or something else that's more traditionally 90s. It's not good. Now, Blue Sky kinda seemed to know this, that despite the game being a commercial hit, it wasn't necessarily the best that they could do. And so in late 1994, they actually got another crack at Jurassic Park, and making a platformer that did the franchise a bit more justice. And so, we ended up with Jurassic Park Rampage Edition. Once again, you can either play as Dr. Grant or a Velociraptor, and this time you're on a completely original journey. If you're Grant, you find yourself crash landing back on Isla Nublar in an attempt to stop InGen's security army from collecting samples and eggs for another dinosaur park. If you're the Raptor, your mission is, once again, to escape the island, this time on a cargo ship. Both Grant and the Raptor have 5 levels to play in. Generally they're the same levels for the pair, although you may have different goals in the level depending on who you are. Rampage Edition, as the name might suggest, is a hell of a lot more action based. Dr. Grant has clearly abandoned any part of him that's at one with nature and with dinosaurs. We're not avoiding these InGen goons or the dinosaurs anymore, we're bloody well killing them. Blast them in the face with shotguns and assault rifles. Use lethal darts and poison their arse off. Get some grenades and blow shit up. Watch with glee as a taser turns everything it touches to a pile of ash. It's not got bucket loads of gore or anything like that, but it's certainly a damn sight more violent than the first game. The Raptor is also still very capable too, of course. He's still got all the moves, and if he eats enough crates then he enters Raptor Rage mode and becomes invincible for a short time. So yeah, we're not interested purely in survival, we're a one-man army. Or one dinosaur army. Who knew that paleontologists kicked so much arse? So while these things may not necessarily be in the spirit of Jurassic Park as a franchise, Rampage Edition is certainly a lot more fun to play than the original game. A big part of this is, of course, because the game is technically superior. It uses a tweaked version of the original engine, which not only means that the graphics are better, but there is now no slowdown at all, thank God. Generally our heroes are a lot smoother to actually control as well, there's less annoying jumps, and the game is thankfully lacking in leaps of faith and endless bloody pits, which is obviously a good thing. The sound is still gems, and it's still okay. Not quite as good as the original, but again it's not offensive in any way. The game isn't necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing out there, not the most colourful, not vibrant at all, generally pretty damn Western Sega Genesis game. But the greens and browns are at least of a decent quality, and the game doesn't run like it's got a Velociraptor's claws shoved in its patella. There are still problems, of course. The level design? Yeah, still a bit iffy. The best level, whether you're playing as Grant or the Raptor, by far, is the cargo ship. It makes sense, there's areas to explore, less of a feeling that the whole thing has just been chucked together, and a nice sense of progression. Generally, when I play this game, I'll immediately go straight to the cargo ship. If I'm playing as Grant anyways, because it's the Raptor's final level. The rest are a bit more wonky. There's the aviary, where you simply get picked up by a pteranodon and taken to its nest, and then you have to get back down to the ground. It looks fine, but there's not a lot to it. You just get back down, and as long as you make sure to shoot pteranodons whenever they appear so they don't take you back to the nest, you can actually beat this in a couple of minutes as long as you just keep going down. The savannah is even less imaginative. It's a long horizontal runner where either the raptor or Grant on the back of a gallimimus runs forth as fast as they can. The only thing that really stops you here are choppers. They appear threatening and they will hurt you if you try to outrun them. So instead of trying to outrun them, you just stop every so often, take the chopper out and then keep going. Not much here. Hidden Ruins, not bad, but it's a bit of a greeny mess and it's chock full of some of the game's cheaper moments. The river rafting, Grant's final level, is an annoying maze where you're also on a boat that's perpetually short of fuel. This was one of the most irritating levels in the first game and it's kinda the same here. Still, Rampage Edition does have the good sense to finish Grant's chapter with a proper chastened battle against a T-Rex, which was kind of missing from the first game. I am fairly fond of Rampage Edition as it goes. It's a long way from perfect, but even if it's not as ambitious as the original title, it is certainly better on the playing front. Is it all perhaps a little lacking in the way of content, seeing as there's only 5 levels, really, and not a massive amount of difference this time between the two characters? Maybe. It's not going to take too long to beat the game with Grant and the Raptor, and it all just requires a bit of practice. But, that's a lot better than the endless feeling of frustration that you get when trying to wrestle with the original Jurassic Park. The game wasn't nearly as big of a hit as the original, and it did get a bit more of a critical kick-in. It is, after all, not exactly a huge jump from the first game to this sequel, but overall it's fine, and definitely one of the better Western platformers. You can also kind of see the jump from here to Blue Sky's Vector Man. Some of the stages here, especially the cargo ship, feel like the sort of thing you would see in the eco-friendly late period Sega series. Vector Man kinda has similar issues when it comes to design and that as well, even if it is technically excellent, although the 2 Vector Man games are certainly a lot better than the 2 Jurassic Park games. And guess what? We're actually not quite finished. There is still one other Jurassic Park based game to talk about on the Sega Mega Drive, and I may as well mention it here. Surprisingly enough, despite being a game based on such a huge franchise, it's relatively very obscure, probably because it's not based on the original. Indeed, there is a Jurassic Park Mega Drive game that's based on the sequel, The Lost World. Now you may wonder just how that could be. The Lost World movie didn't even come out until May 1997 after all, and surely no one was creating any Mega Drive games at that point, were they? And you would be right, almost no one was. Except for Appaloosa Interactive, the long-time Mega Drive veterans from Hungary who were previously known as Nova Trade and most famous for the Echo the Dolphin games. Appaloosa released their Lost World game on Mega Drive in October 1997, and it has the honour of being the second to last game released on the system in its initial commercial lifetime. It was another year until the final game came out, Majesco's version of Frogger. So you may already be surprised at the fact that this game exists at all. But you know what's also surprising? Despite being a tie-in game, released at a time when most people probably already thought that the Mega Drive was completely dead, the game itself is actually pretty good. It's a very different game to the 2 more famous titles from Blue Sky. In fact, this is a top-down game, which obviously puts it a lot closer to the original Jurassic Park game on SNES. You play as an unnamed character who has to complete 19 missions on 4 different sites on Isla Sorna. Your character's a hunter of sorts, and rather than killing dinosaurs, your aim is often to capture them instead, luring the particularly big ones into transports rather than taking them down. Plenty of rivals are also on the island, and obviously you've got plenty of guns and ammo to kill them with. And of course there's the smaller dinosaurs like the Dilophosaurus and what have you. You can kill these bastards without consequence because, well, who wants anything to do with a pesky little twat who spits acid in your face? No one. The sites are pretty big and open, and you've got several vehicles that can help you traverse them. Helpfully, there is also infinite continues, as the game is quite long. Hell, it's even kind enough to start you from your last checkpoint, as opposed to right at the beginning of a mission or site. The Lost World is actually quite a pleasant experience to play, even if it does have a couple of problems that you may expect from a game that's come out basically at the end of a system's life. It doesn't feel like it got much in the way of testing. Sometimes the graphics can get a bit glitchy, although never really to the point where the game breaks, just little quibbles. While the quality of the graphics, aside from these glitches, is generally good, a bit more variation in the settings also wouldn't have gone amiss, although the game's music is quite decent. These problems are the sort of thing you might expect from a Mega Drive game released in late 1997, because I hardly imagine that too much in the way of resources or manpower were devoted to the creation of this game, and to be honest, it's a complete wonder why Sega decided to have it made at all. You would have thought everything would have still been pretty much geared towards the Sega Saturn. Sega of America didn't have much time at all for 2D Len, famously, and yet despite all that, this game was made. How come? Now, I'm not fully sure. However, I do kind of wonder if a part of it had to do with plans to keep the Mega Drive going as something of a budget machine with the help of a third party. This despite that ship kinda having sailed away when Sega infamously cut the system's life short upon their release of the Saturn. But Sega did return to the Mega Drive, or rather they returned to the Genesis in North America, with the help of Majesco, who released the Genesis 3 in 1998. Now, was there a thought that, if there's going to be a new Genesis on the shelves, perhaps there should at least be a couple of actual new games to go along with it? Quite possibly. It's kind of funny then, if that is the case, that The Lost World on Mega Drive actually ends up being one of the best tie-ins for this particular film. It's definitely better than the platform games that appeared on PlayStation, not quite as good as the arcade, and, well, it's hard to really compare anything at all to the saga that is Trespasser, but we'll certainly get to that game pretty soon. In any case, this is actually a good little game, not bad at all for such a late title, and actually a little hidden gem on the system that a lot of folk may have never considered playing, if they've even heard of its existence. I recommend giving it a whirl. So that about wraps it up for the Mega Drive's Jurassic Park based titles, although seeing as there's plenty more to say about other games based on Steven Spielberg's glorious dinosaur-a-thon, I don't think we're quite done here yet. In the next video, I'm going to focus primarily on the totally different SNES game and just what it meant for Ocean Software, while also having a quick look at the other more adventure-based titles based on Jurassic Park for the Mega CD and the 3DO. And after that, yeah, I think it's about time I did a big full video on Trespasser. Hopefully you've enjoyed this first vid of an impromptu Jurassic trilogy, and all that's left to say, as ever, is bye for now. If you really like my stuff and want to support the channel, you could have a look at my Patreon. I'd specifically like to thank these awesome people: Alexa Jones-Gonzalez, Andrew Dalton, Arcade LY Webmaster, Brian Henniger, D. Xalior Rimwan Suter, Dagorath Dungeon Keeper, Danny Wolfers, David Matuszek, David Rose, Dinty76538, Douglas Miller, Dustin Cooper, Gary Samaden, Glunfeth, J.S. Manchild, James Brown, Jace Alexander, Jeff Ladd, Johnny, Kid Cassette, Lucas Kaligowski, Mike Clayton Travis, Martin Pataki, Nate Milbank, Peter Bushstar Bushnell, Potter Margel, Renbimon, Robert De Felice, Rod B, Rusty Kelly, Sam Stoddart, Seth A. Robinson, Simon Gulliver, Stuart Christopher Brownlee, Tamers, Tariq Amir, Tom K, Yerka Operator, and to all the rest of the awesome community, thank you so much, and goodbye.